YouTube. So this is going to be my first tutorial. In this first episode, what I'm doing is I'm going to show you what I think is the single most important thing you can do to improve the quality of your drone footage. While this example focuses on the drone footage quality, I think it also applies to any other type of camera where the results come out a little bit blown out or overexposed. So I get that a lot, for instance, with my GoPro as well. So you can apply the same techniques that I'm going to show you today. So without further ado, let's take a look at some examples. So I'm in Final Cut Pro right now. This is the video editor I use. It's a very good video editor for the Mac. But I think most of the examples I'm going to show you today, you can actually apply these same techniques to any other video editor out there. Let's start with this clip here that I shot. If you want to see the full video, I'll put up the link up here on the corner so you can see it. But I'm going to show you sort of how the original clip looks like and how I was able to make them look a lot better. If you see this example, the image is crisp, it looks okay, but it's a little bit washed out. I'm going to make this bigger so you can see it. A few things look a little bit washed out. The colors are a little bit flat. And even though I used the standard automatic image settings just straight out of the drone, so I didn't use any profiles or anything like that out of the camera. And for this particular set of clips, I was using auto exposure. I plan to do a video at some point in time where I explain how I go about actually adjusting the exposure in flight, but for today I decided to focus just on improving the end result regardless of your camera settings when you shoot. So this is the original footage again, and if I let it run a little bit, this is the end result we're looking for. Let's see how I did that. I'm just going to make it smaller. So the way you do this is you drag the color correction effect over the clip that you want to apply it to, and then adjust the exposure accordingly. I'm not going to drag it there because I already actually have one of these layers on this clip, so I'm just going to play with the one that I already have there and show you how we can improve the image quality. So I'm just going to enable it. You're not going to notice any changes because it's basically reset, so there's no changes. But if I click that arrow there, let me do that again. If I click that arrow there, I get to a panel where I can tweak the exposure, the saturation of the image, and tweak the color of the image as well. I usually leave the color settings to the end and focus primarily on the exposure settings. So the first thing I do with the exposure is lower the midtones, which is this circle up here. This is the blacks in the image or the shadows. These are the midtones and these are the highlights, so the brighter areas in your image. So the first thing I'm going to try and do is turn these areas here that are a little bit overexposed and add a little bit of contrast. And the way you do that is by lowering your midtone. So notice what's going to happen. So if I decrease this by dragging the circle, the image and those colors start popping up. Look at that. Looks a lot better, right? So there's no magic number for what this needs to be set at, but you just play with it for a little bit, up or down, and see what setting you prefer and which one looks better. One thing to keep in mind though is, if I pull this down too much, it's going to start crushing the shadow. So you start losing detail there. Some of these things here start looking a bit darker than they looked when I was shooting. And again, it's hard to start seeing the details in some of the shadows. So you need to balance how much of the midtones you lower. I think this one looks okay. And then if you start having some problems with loss of detail there, you can always bring your shadows a little bit up. So the way you do that is you click the shadows or the blacks and raise them just a tiny bit. You can see if I bring them up too much, it's going to blow out the image and the darker sections of the picture. If I bring them too low, it's going to darken everything. So I usually don't touch this much, but I'm just going to give it a little bit of a raising the shadows there so it's not completely black. And then the other thing you can do is play a little bit with the highlights. I usually leave them like, at the standard setting, but if you increase them, you can see, the road there starting to blow out a little bit. The images look a bit more lively, but it turns the road a little bit white. And if I decrease, it's just going to look dark. So I'm just going to leave it maybe as it is. So let's see, just by lowering the midtones here, let's see the difference. I'm going to remove it. This is what the original footage looks like. This is what the footage looks like after you've reset the midtones and adjust so that the image looks a lot better. So this is the single most important thing you can do to improve the image quality of your drone footage. The other thing I did on this clip was I added some additional effects to the clip on the end video. It's always a matter of preference of what you want to do, but this one has a high contrast and the tones it feels a bit blue, right? I mean, if you look at here, there's more color than in the original shot, but it's not very warm. So what I did on this one is had a little bit of warmth to the clip. So the way you can do that is by, again, under color correction, leave the exposure as it was, and go to color. And then I usually move the highlights to a place where I can add a little bit of red to the highlights, so the image becomes a little bit warmer. Just for the sake of example, I'm going to increase the reds here, so you can see this doesn't look natural, so it's too much. So if I lower it a little bit, I can make the image a little bit warmer and closer to what I remember seeing there. It didn't feel like this, right? So if you see this image where I'm actually pulling down the reds, it feels cold. So I'm going to increase the reds a little bit, just a tiny bit, give it a warmer look. And that should be enough. I usually don't touch the midtones or the blacks because I feel that just by increasing the reds a little bit on the highlights, it already gives me the sort of the warmer look that I'm looking for. And that's pretty much it. So if you obviously need to apply this then to all your clips to be able to go from this to this. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. Bear with me, this is really my first tutorial. I need to learn how to do these better, and I hope to do them more frequently. In the meantime, please leave comments below as to what you'd like to see covered in these tutorials, what types of questions you usually have, and I'll start capturing some of those ideas for future videos. In the meantime, please be sure to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, share with your friends, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.